Am I the asshole for marrying my sister's baby daddy? I, 36-year-old female, and my sister, 29 female, got pregnant when she was 18 years old. I am infertile and knew I couldn't have kids, so when my sister said she was giving her baby up for adoption, I decided to be her mom. My sister went no contact 5 months after giving birth. For a bit of background, my sister got pregnant by a one-night stand and she apparently didn't remember or know the father at the time of birth, but when my daughter V was born, a man T, 35, messaged me on social media claiming to be the father of my child. My sister had run into him at a club and drunkenly confessed to the pregnancy. We met up, he bonded with his daughter, and well, that man is now my husband of 7 years. Coming back to my sister, she called me yesterday. Although I was surprised at her call, I picked up. We made some small talk and then she said she had just gotten married a year back and both of them wanted children but couldn't because her husband was infertile but really wanted kids. I asked her if she wanted to adopt and she said no, she just wanted her baby back. I was speechless for a few moments before replying that if she wants to meet my child as an aunt, she is welcome to, and we can both sit V down and explain the reason for her absence, but she can't just ask me to give up my child. My sister said she'll sue me as she is the birth mother. I told her she was out of her mind, and then I told her how I married the baby daddy, T. She exploded, calling me names and saying I stole her life. My husband came home from work, and when I explained to him, he was beyond furious. I then got a call from my parents saying I was an asshole for telling my sister she's not allowed to see her baby. I never said that, and I welcomed her to bond with V, but they refused to listen and said I was being insensitive and harsh and flaunting my family. I now feel bad because my sister and I were very close growing up, and I feel quite close to her situation since I know the struggles of infertility. My husband said there was no way he was letting my sister have full time alone with V, and I agree, but I want to know if I'm the asshole for being too harsh and telling her about T.
My 69-year-old mother-in-law, Sandra, is a weird woman. She even refers to herself as that. She has random outbursts, hyperfixations, tics, and struggles immensely with social cues. She hasn't been diagnosed with anything, so I won't speculate. When I first met my husband's family, I noticed that all of them except my husband made fun of Sandra and her quirks. For example, we were having dinner one night and my mother-in-law couldn't stop talking about flowers. She loves plants and nature and is super knowledgeable about it. My sister-in-law made a comment making fun of her and everybody at the table laughed about it. Sandra got extremely embarrassed and didn't talk for the rest of the night. This kind of behavior is normal in the family and I despise it. I get so angry whenever someone makes fun of Sandra because she's just a kind, lovely woman that I just can't fathom why they would do that. I've had a lot of conversations about this with my husband and even fights when he laughs about the jokes. We have a 15-year-old son named Alex, and my biggest fear is coming true. Alex has started to pick up on the behavior around him and has been laughing at Sandra. I've talked to him about why laughing at her is bullying and how that behavior is inappropriate, etc., but Alex doesn't seem to care. 2 weeks ago, we went to see Sandra. My brother and sister-in-law were there along with their families. Sandra looked very happy. While catching up, she randomly started clapping. This is one of her tics that appear when she's excited. My brother-in-law made a comment poking fun of her and the whole family started laughing, including my husband and Alex. Sandra got teary-eyed and had to excuse herself to the bathroom. I have never been more furious. While on our way home, I chewed my husband and son out and told them not to speak to me until they apologized to Sandra. I told them that I don't want to hear a single word directed to me until they reflect on how their actions are hurtful and disgusting. 2 weeks have passed and I haven't spoken to them. Not a single word because they've made 0 attempts to apologize to Sandra. My husband is telling me that I'm being petty and hurting Alex. He's also mad at me for valuing my relation with Sandra more than my relation with them. In my mind, I'm not doing that, but my husband says that I'm being an asshole. Am I wrong for refusing to talk to them until they apologize to Sandra?
I'm a sissy, and I grew up under terrible conditions because my mom was mentally ill. She often made me steal stuff from shops because no one suspected a little girl like me to be a thief. Of course I was scared of being caught, but my mom gave me no choice. However, one night she drank too much and fell down the stairs. Suddenly she couldn't walk anymore and I had to take care of her even though I was only 11. We quickly ran out of food and I said, "Mommy, the fridge is empty and I'm hungry." She responded, "Stop complaining. Instead, go catch some cockroaches so we can eat them." Was she serious? I was petrified of those disgusting little insects, but I still trapped one of them and showed it to my mom. She told me to cook it, but we only had a toaster, so I killed it and put it in there. After I'd given it to my mom to eat, I caught many more roaches and even ate my very first small baby cockroach. It tasted okay, so I started to catch hundreds of them and became the provider of my family. But then the toaster broke and we had to eat them raw. Of course they were extremely dirty, so we often got sick, but at least we had a full stomach. I continued living like this for weeks until people from the government came into our apartment and took me away from my mom, even though I screamed and wanted to stay with her. I was brought into a children's home where people explained to me that my mom was mentally ill, but no one wanted to tell me where she was or who was taking care of her. I felt abandoned and scared, but there was one thing that made me feel safe, and that was eating roaches. So whenever I saw one, I picked it up and put it into a toaster and ate it. The taste gave me a feeling of comfort because it reminded me of my mom. I started eating so many of them that I got salmonella infection and had to go to the hospital. When I told the doctor that I was addicted to eating cockroaches, he brought me to a psychologist who told me that there was nothing wrong about eating roaches as long as they were clean. He convinced me to start farming roaches, and that turned out to be much easier than I had thought. All I needed was a box of roaches and some fruits to feed them. After a few months, I had more than 1,000 of them. But I made a big mistake and let them roam around my room freely, because one baby roach crawled through my nose and into my brain while I was asleep. I didn't know what was going on, only that my nose hurt. I kept it untreated for several days until I visited a doctor who saw something moving way up my nose. It took several hours to pull the cockroach out, but from then, I always kept them locked in my box. But I had bigger problems. I had no friends or family, and I was feeling extremely lonely. That's why I started binge eating cockroaches. I probably gained 10 kilograms in 3 months, and I knew I had to change my life or my roach addiction would kill me. I still remember my last roach. It was a small baby one, maybe 1 centimeter big. I ate it raw and alive. Then I brushed my teeth and said, never again. Afterward, I thought I needed an education to get ahead in life, so I taught myself writing and reading by spending most of my days at the library. 6 months later, I enrolled myself in university. There I moved into a dorm, but the other girls didn't like me. They said I smelled bad and lived like a pig. I guess months later, I enrolled myself in university. There I moved into a dorm, but the other girls didn't like me. They said I smelled bad and lived like a pig. I guess they were right. My mother had never taught me to clean up anything, and now I had to learn to shower daily and wash my hands when I got home. But because no one liked me, I had lots of time to study, and it reflected through my grades. One rainy afternoon while at the library, I bumped into a guy. He was dressed in all black and apologized. I could tell he was different, just like me. I asked, "What are you studying here?" And he responded, "I'm studying philosophy." We sat down at a cafe and talked for hours. He was just like me. He said his family had raised him on a farm but mostly neglected him. He said they didn't speak a single word with him from age 11 to 16. His only friends were books until he ran away and found a job as a construction worker. But his love for reading brought him to a university, just like it did for me. I had a weird feeling when I looked at him. I can't describe it, but it felt good. And 1 week later, we had our first date. We were lying next to each other on the grass when he laid his hand on my belly. Of course I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. But then he just kissed me. It was the most intense feeling I've ever had, and I got so aroused that I bit into his lip. He said ouch and went back on his back. I apologized and saw that he was bleeding. Gosh, what had I done? I was so stupid. I said, "I'm so sorry. I've never kissed a guy before." "It's okay, don't worry. I just didn't know you like it that way." "What do you mean by that way?" "You like it rough. That's okay." "No, I don't think so." He went back on top of me and gently choked me. "Do you like this?" I couldn't speak, so I just nodded. I loved the way he played with me. It was the first time I felt truly attracted to a guy. Afterward, we became a couple and spent all our time together. I loved sitting next to him in the library so I could watch him read books. He always looked so handsome. But one day, he was just gone. He didn't respond to my text, and his dorm mate said he had disappeared without saying anything. Of course, I was worried. Maybe something had happened to him, so I called up all the hospitals, but he wasn't there. Maybe he had left because of me. Maybe he didn't love me anymore. I suddenly remembered my mom. For years I had avoided thinking about her, but now it all came back, especially the guilt that I had not taken care of her. I stayed inside my bed for days, crying my heart out until I decided I had to find her. Maybe she was still alive, so I went to the police and asked them to find out where they had brought my mom 10 years ago. It took them 2 weeks to figure out, but the news wasn't good. My mom had died shortly after we were separated. I can't describe how hard the news hit me. I was absolutely devastated. I knew I was close to giving up and asked myself, is my life worth living? The answer was, no, it's not. But I knew it could become worth living if I got a nice job, found a husband, and had kids someday. Yes, that would be a life worth living. And that's what I'm working toward.
Am I the asshole for not letting my best friend tell his grandmother that my son is actually her grandson? I'm gonna be honest, y'all gonna have to explain this because I don't know what the hell going on. I, a 37-year-old male, am 100% sterile due to a childhood accident. My wife, a 35-year-old female, and I considered our options for starting a family and agreed a sperm donor situation would be the most affordable / accessible option available to us. After looking into more traditional methods, we both concluded that an anonymous nut in a cup was a little weird and impersonal for both of us. After a lot of irrelevant interlude, my best friend John, a 39-year-old male, agreed to be the donor. This was years ago, and my wife and I now have a son, Abraham, who is 7. from the arrangement with John. We also have adopted a second child, Lily, who's a 4-year-old female. John is a part of both of our children's lives, and we are all very close. But they have no clue that he is Abraham's biological dad, and neither really does anyone else. A few close relatives know he isn't biologically mine, but only because they know I'm sterile. Even our friends don't really know. It just isn't relevant, and we're private people. John is single and has been pretty much his whole life. He's financially and career motivated and just has never settled down and doesn't really plan to now. With Abraham, he has a biological child and he can interact with him, but no responsibility at all. It works for all of us and hasn't been an issue until now. His mother, who's in her late 60s, has always wanted grandkids, I guess, but never made much of a fuss. But she recently found out she has terminal cancer and only has a year or so left to live. And now has been saying her big regret is never getting to be a grandmother. Okay, I see where this is going. John has come to my wife and I and asked us to let Abraham know he is the biological father so that he can let his mother have a grandmother/grandchild relationship. Neither my wife nor I want to rock the boat in any of the ways that entails, and I've told him as much. But now he's saying that after all he's done, all he's asking for is to let his son know his family, and that he's always assumed we'd someday tell everyone. This is something we're adamantly not interested in doing. So I'm assuming this is all from him being shocked/upset about his mother, but I put my foot down and told him a solid no. Now he's saying I'm an asshole and I'll be crushing his mother's dreams if I don't let him tell Abraham. Am I the a-hole in this situation? Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is complicated. Firstly, this is the reason why people choose anonymous donors, so they don't have to go through this. If you did not know him, there'd be no way for him to contact, and he damn sure wouldn't be asking you to introduce your kid to his mother, who he has never met. The only thing that he is thinking about is himself. You guys never had a deal that you would eventually tell him who his biological father was. But this is something that you guys should have discussed a long time ago, and that's bad on both of your parts. Thing is, you assumed correctly that he would never be interested in a kid beyond just hanging out with him every now and then. And that was the case until his mother got sick and until he wanted more. So no, I don't think you are the a-holes in this situation. I think he is, and I get it. His mother's going through a hard time. He's losing his family. He probably wants to reconnect with his kid just as much as he wants to have his mother know her grandchild, and all of these emotions are boiling over onto your family. Unfortunately for him, he should have had kids with somebody else or discussed this before you guys decided to go through with this process. Hit that follow button and subscribe to the Church of Joe Stone podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Oh yeah, and check out the merch. Links in the bio. I am Joe Stone.
My classmate Bonnie was obsessed with seducing boys that already had a girlfriend. And when I caught her flirting with my boyfriend, TJ, I finally lost it. Get away from him, you pumpkin face! Oh, but he likes me so much. TJ, tell me, am I your favorite girl? I pushed her away and said, TJ, she is a tramp. Promise me to stay away from her. Oh, don't worry. She's harmless. But I know teenage boys think with their pants, not with their heads. I couldn't trust my boyfriend as long as Bonnie was around. And the other girls felt the same. So to get Bonnie under control, we all gossiped and excluded her. But it didn't work. It only drove her further to the boys. And they loved her, of course. She was thin, had a bubble butt, and always dressed like she was on spring break. Rumor had it she'd already slept with more than 100 guys, even though she was only 16. But that's probably an underestimate. Once at a party, I saw her kiss 10 different guys within just an hour. It was so disgusting. And things escalated on our class camping trip. I looked out the window for 1 second, and Bonnie handcuffed herself to my boyfriend TJ. Then she said she couldn't remember where the key was. I was furious and sat myself between them, but she kept tickling and touching TJ over my shoulder. Then our teacher forced me to change seats. Now I had to watch her fall asleep on TJ's lap, and it got worse. When we got to the cabins, it was already dark, and we couldn't find a hammer to destroy the handcuffs. So our teacher told TJ and Bonnie, "You two just have to bunk together tonight." That's when I lost it and screamed, "No! My boyfriend won't sleep next to that tramp!" "Don't stress, girl. I'll take extra good care of TJ. You'll see. He's such a good boy anyway." She started pawing at him, and I was about to kill her. I knew she would try to make out with him in their bed. And what if she took off her clothes and got naked? The next morning I woke up. My friends told me to check Bonnie's Instagram. Apparently she had posted a video with TJ. "Hey, I'm here in bed with my new boyfriend. Isn't he a cutie pie?" Bonnie had no shirt on while TJ was sleeping in her arms with lipstick kisses all over his face. I went to find a hammer so I could finally destroy the handcuffs. But that's when Bonnie said, "Oh, I just remembered where the key is. It's right here in my pants." I grabbed the key, sprung them loose, and asked, "What was that video on Bonnie's Instagram?" "Oh, that wasn't my fault. She kissed me while I was asleep." "Oh, TJ, you liar. Why don't you tell her about the other things we did last night, you naughty boy?" That night, all the guys went to a lake. Us girls weren't invited, but of course Bonnie disappeared with them. So I grabbed a flashlight and went hunting. I found the guys laughing around a bonfire when Bonnie sat down on TJ's lap and sucked his face. I was disgusted, but the guys were cheering.